Nice to see you. JamieAllenBishop here to tell you a little bit about toe reading. Let's get started. Okay, let's learn a little bit about toe reading. This is just a basic overview and it'll be super quick. If the slides will change. All right. You can learn a little bit more about me on my website. I'm not going to go into that in this presentation. I will tell you a little story, though, a story about my destined path. Um, I found Casey Miller at a convention that I attended, and there was a line out the door to see this beautiful woman. She was on the floor. In fact, I think I have a picture of her. Let me show you. Yeah, there she is. Okay. So on the floor doing toe readings, very similar to this. And the line was out the door and around the corner of the building. And I just was astounded, A, that there was a line that long, and B, that there was this beautiful woman sitting on the floor. So I had to know more. I learned that it was about toe reading. I took her basic class that weekend, and the rest, as they say, is history. Toe reading has been around for more than 5,000 years. It's based on ancient knowledge about trigger points, and that's known as reflexology. It's really the study of our soul's journey. So it doesn't matter which meat suit we're wearing in any given moment. We take that soul adventure with us when we go. Let's look at the definition of toe reading. Toe reading is this idea that our thoughts and feelings show up the way that our toes do. So what does that mean? I'm going to get into that. We have 6 subjects of toe reading. One is purpose, or the big picture. It's our big toe or ether toe. Second is our air toe, our communication toe. It's akin to the pointer fingers. That is about our analytics, our creativity. Obviously, communication is part of it. The third toe is our action toe, which is our fire toe or our middle toe. Oh, by the way, the communication toe is the air toe, just in case I didn't mention that. So the action toe is think about your middle finger. What does that stand for? It's fire. It's our temperament. It's how we show up and take action in the world. That's our fire toe. Our relationship toe or our water toe is about how we go with the flow. It's how, or maybe we don't go with the flow. All that shows up in the relationship. It makes me laugh because, I struggle in that area. I'll be honest. Um, Trust, faith and trust, the baby toe, the earth toe. That is all about oh, by the way, that's the only toe that's different from foot to foot. On the left foot, typically, every once in a while, it's very, very rare, but every once in a while, it will be reversed for somebody. So if you're coming across this video and it feels reversed for you, just believe that to be true. But for most of the people, and when I say most, I'm talking 99.99%. It's like 0.01% that are different. But anyway, it's the trust toe. The left baby toe is the trust toe, the trust, faith, knowing, like that inner sense of knowing. When we get in touch with our intuition, that's where that will show up. And last but not least, on our right baby toe, also an earth toe, you will find abundance, prosperity, those kind of things. The chakras obviously show up on our toes as well. Well, maybe not obviously. The chakras show up on our toes. We have third eye, we have crown chakra, we have throat chakra, we have heart chakra, solar plexus, navel, or and then root chakra. I always get the navel one confused. That's the one that I'm the most like anyway. So of course I get it confused. It's the one I'm working on. Anyway, hologram of the body. This is how the feet show up on the hologram of the body, or rather the hologram of the body shows up on the feet. You'll notice that this body is pointed away. When you're looking at the top of the feet, the body is pointed away. So it's kind of like the back of our body shows up on the top of our feet, and the front of our body shows up on the bottom of our feet. So if you can imagine the hologram of the body and you can imagine what your feet go through every day, you can understand why your body can be exhausted at the end of the day. um, how the chakras relate to the feet and therefore the spine. The spine is located kind of from the tip of the big toe all the way to the heel of the toe. And it's all along that outside line. So when you're talking about the chakras go vertically, but they also go horizontally on the foot. So it's almost like a grid pattern. When you're talking about, like, let's say a pain, let's say you have a pain. I'm going to annotate here, see if that works, see if that shows up for y'all. So here, I'm going to do that. Let's say you have a big, huge pain that shows up like right here, and you don't know why it's showing up there. You don't know what's going on. But if you look at this chart, you can see that you're talking about something that's dealing somewhere between the heart and the solar plexus as far as the chakras. And then it might be affecting like the middle of your back or like right between your shoulder blades. And then it's also affecting the throat and the heart chakra over here. So maybe you're not speaking your truth. Maybe you're struggling with your heart in the sense that maybe you're going through some difficult times that affect you emotionally in that heart-centered place. So just so that you can see what that looks like, there you go. Obviously, when pain shows up in other areas, this is a fantastic map to reference so that you can maybe get to the heart of where you can change that in your mind. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Other things that show up in on a toe reading are your yin and yang side of yourself. Yin is typically thought of as feminine or the white side. The um, yang is thought of as masculine or the dark side. It's essentially the circle of life, if that's the right way to put it. I'm not a master in this area, but I definitely believe there's validity to it. There's a little bit of difficulty in each of those areas. And when we're truly balanced within ourselves and our chakras and our mindset and our all the other things that are involved in our life, we can express this through the yin yang and we can feel that balance show up in our lives. So just keep that in mind as we look there. And then thank you, Getty, for putting this online. I borrowed it. This is the past, the present, and the future. So the past will take you toward the baby toes. The past will take you actually toward the big toe. The future will take you toward the baby toes, and the present will come straight off of your feet as far as our toes are concerned. Here's an interesting thing, the timeline of life. If you believe that your toes are the hologram of your body, like we were talking about before, where the toe meets the foot is our birth. Anything that happens thereafter comes about in this lifetime's worth of experience. So any marks um, or lines or coloration or whatever that show up on the actual foot, those are going to be things that we've brought from our past life experience. The things that show up on our toes are going to be this present lifetime's experience. So that's why toe reading comes across as pretty accurate. You'll be surprised. So the tip of the toe is today. The nails of the toes are the windows to the experience or the story. And we have birth, a third of your lifetime, or 2/3 of your lifetime ago, a half of your lifetime ago, a third of your lifetime ago, and then today. And that's kind of where they show up on the toe itself. This map comes in very, very handy. If you have not received it yet, you can go to my website and sign up, and I'll send it directly to you so that you can look at it whenever you like. But here's where yin yang shows up on the feet. Yin is typically the left foot, and it's typically the feminine side, okay, internal self side. The yang foot shows up on the right side, and it's typically the masculine side. And all of us have that. I hope that y'all know that. All of us have both feminine and masculine within, and it's just a matter of how we show up online or in person. The toes that lean toward the big toe are focused on past thoughts. The toes that show up toward the bit or that kind of lean toward the baby toes are future thoughts. So things that we're thinking. If I kind of think of it as if it's out there or pointed away, out in the world, that's future oriented. If it's pointed toward us, then it's more past. It's things that we carry with us. So the toes that cause the most challenge are the toes that have both, where some of the toe is turned over on its side and some of the toe is upright, or I it most often shows up in the baby toes. Sometimes the relationship toe as well. The toes. A lot of people say it's because of their shoes, and that is true. However, if you're consciously choosing to wear those shoes, you're consciously choosing to make your soul have this specific journey. So that's an interesting thing to consider. So choose your shoes wisely, y'all. All right. So the number one question I get asked as a toe reader is, can toes change? The answer is yes. Yes, yes, yes. The most effective way to change your toes, mindset. Yeah, like it blows my mind every time I say this or every time people hear this, because they think there's no way that your toes can change just because your mindset changes. And I'm here to tell you, I've seen it happen in real time, live and in person. Now, of course, toes that have been affected very severely for long periods of time, the bony masses form to make the toes have more permanent challenges. Those obviously require surgery, but I'm here to tell you that if you get surgery and you don't change your mindset, your toes are going to go right back to where they were. So work on you, work on your mindset, and you will have toes that make you happy. Other ways to work the toe care thing are to do some self-care. You can clean your toes. Sometimes when you use very specific ways of looking at it, this is my favorite thing, and I've done this for myself multiple times, so I know that it works, is 1 cup of Epsom salt, 1 cup of sea salt, 1 cup of baking soda, and then drops of whatever essential oil brings you pleasure, brings you joy, the essential, like the smell. So you're doing those for the smell really only. Sometimes I know that there's a lot of information out there on how the essential oils serve us, and they do. So if you're working on a very specific thing or trying to release specific things, you can look up to see which essential oil is the best one to serve that purpose, and you can use that in your foot bath. But I'm telling you, this works. It may not be quite as dramatic as these images seem in this picture, because of course this is a sales pitch. I mean, I pulled this off the internet, so it's not my sales pitch, but it's, these anyway, whatever. You get the idea that if the water is orangey, you're detoxifying your joints. So if you have a lot of carpal tunnel issues, or if you have a lot of arthritis issues, this would be the one that you would probably have the most show up, is the orange. If you were somebody who struggles with yeast, maybe you're gluten-free, or maybe you're trying to be gluten-free, but you just can't resist that bread every so often, this would be a great thing to do, is after you have the bread. And I'm not talking about overdoing it by eating a whole pizza. I'm talking about overdoing it by having one slice of pizza, because you're hanging out with your friends or you're at a party or whatever is going on. This will help your body process that stuff that's difficult for you to process. So that white cheese-like particles is yeast from that. It can also detoxify that lymphatic system. Anyway, you get the idea. You can read all this stuff on your own. Toe separators are amazing. They absolutely help. They're not comfortable when you first put them on because your toes are used to being in a certain position. But when you separate your toes, you're literally opening yourself up to receiving more information from the world around you. So you have a tendency to have more of an open mind. You have a tendency to have more of an open experience in the world, and therefore your stories about things that we've carried from the past have a tendency to adjust accordingly, which serves us. It serves us well. Reflexology, I cannot even stress this enough. I'm a reflexologist, so I know what goes into the study. If you're hiring a certified reflexologist to rub your feet, let me tell you something, you will get rid of some pretty heavy stuff that you're holding on to. Then it's just a matter of you shifting your mindset to match the muscle and tendon and bone transformation, and you will transform your toes. It's absolutely amazing. Other ways, obviously, ask for help if you need help. A coach can certainly fill this role in your life. There are many people that can fill this role in your life, though. So don't, you know, that said, I highly, highly recommend that if you choose a path, you stick with it until the end. Stick with the one person until the end. You don't know how they're going to be able to help you unless you take the full course of action. If you quit halfway through, that's called self-sabotage. So if you hire a coach, go for it, but stick with it, even when it's uncomfortable to stick with, or even if your quote unquote guides are telling you not to, or your intuition is saying, no, this isn't working. Stop this. This is a waste of time. That's ego. That's ego stepping in saying, oh, this is not normal. We're not used to this. This is uncomfortable. No, 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 no. And that's self-sabotage. So anyway, point being, stick with a coach until the end, stick with a therapist until the end, stick with whoever until you feel fulfilled, until you feel full and loving and kind and thoughtful and everything is good in your life. That's when you know that it has worked for you. So let's take a moment and read those toes. All right, so we're actually going to read the toes that have been in the background of this whole presentation. I'm going to go through it one at a time. Big picture, purpose, or destiny. The right foot is your external self side or your masculine side. The left foot is your internal self side or your feminine side. So when it comes to those words, the destined path or your purpose or your big picture, your internal big picture might look a little bit different than your external big picture. On this gal's toes, let me just show you how this looks on here. I'm going to do it in, here, let's do it in purple. So if I were to be sitting with this gal, I would say, do you sometimes feel like you're not heard or like you're saying the same thing over and over and over? And my writing is a little bit difficult because my desk is not that empty right now. It has my microphone on it. So, but you can see that by the way that the toes are really, really rounded. It kind of makes me think of going around the mulberry bush, or that equipment at a park that no longer exists at a park, by the way. Or at least none that I've seen anytime recently, where you spin around and around and around. It kind of has that feeling to it, these toes with the roundedness of her big toe. So that would be the number one question that I would ask her is, does she feel heard? And if so, is it serving her? And if not, is it serving her? How is that serving her? That the way that she's looking at her big picture. She has nice big toes, so I'm sure that her destined path is coming across as pretty obvious to her. She knows what she's here to do. She doesn't have a whole lot of experience. All of her toes are very, very smooth. So that tells me that she might be a little bit of a new soul. And so she might be ready to experience some of the things which could come across or could seem at first like difficulty or challenge. But for the most part, she is ready to jump in this lifetime. Next, let me get out of the annotation. Next, we have the communication, creativity, or analytical toe. It is the second toe, the toe right next to the big toe. And this is often where we experience air, or kind of like we can sway in the breeze depending on who we're talking to, especially nowadays, depending on who we're talking to. Communication is might change based on who you're around. Let's say I just, of course, go to politics because we're so, everybody thinks it's a difficult subject to talk about right now, right? So, you kind of have a tendency to, or I have a tendency to bite my tongue on this subject. I don't want to get into a fight. I'm not interested in necessarily knowing anybody else's opinion. However, I just want to be gracious in front of it. Everybody has their own opinions, and most people have strong opinions right now. So for me, I just it's not biting my tongue because I definitely voice my opinion. I just am a little bit more careful about who I voice my opinion in front of, because we all have valid opinions, in my opinion. Anyway, for these toes specifically, one of the things that I notice is that and this is being very nitpicky also, I wouldn't expect a new toe reader to know this, but on this right foot, which is her external self, if you'll notice this right here, this little padding goes a little bit more like a box shape. It's a little bit flatter at that tip than this one, which is more round, like the big toes, right? It has that more round. So that would tell me that internally, her communication with herself is a little bit more gracious. It's a little bit more accepting. It's a little bit more curved and gentle. But outside in the real world, or in the physical world rather, she is maybe a little bit more blunt, a little bit more straightforward, a little bit more to the point, which which can serve her. It can serve you as her friend. Let's say you're this person's friend. This would come across as somebody that will be straightforward with you. She'll be a straight shooter. All right, moving on. The question that I would ask her is, does it sometimes feel like you speak your mind before you think about what you're going to say? And does that serve you? If it serves you, great. If it doesn't serve you, maybe one of the things to work on is listening twice as much as you speak, right? Um, if the communication internally is maybe a little bit too gracious. So how does that serve her? How does beating around the bush or not going directly to the point, does it make it difficult to make decisions? Does it make it difficult to communicate, I go back to what I was just saying about me. Like, I try really hard to not voice my opinion right then and there in front of everybody, because I know that we all have very differing opinions right now. And so is that serving me? Is that serving me in the best way possible? For me, yes, it is. But I don't know that I'll always be that way with my opinion when it comes to these subjects. So, but for now, I'm more in that observing mode. So I'm more observing the world around me and seeing what's happening there. For action and temperament, same thing. Action is that middle finger on our hands, and we kind of all know what that means. It pretty much translates from culture to culture. So, in toe reading, it means action or temperament. It means kind of how we're feeling, especially when we're triggered, but even when we're not, you hear that phrase, oh, she has the sweetest temperament. And you hear it even about babies who haven't really developed much of opinions yet, but they definitely have distinct personalities, right? Little itty bitty kids have very distinct personalities. That's where you'll see it in their action and temperament toe. That middle toe tells so much. So one of the things that I notice overall, I think I already mentioned that she feels like a little bit of a new soul, this person who owns these feet. But the other main thing that I would say about these toes is that her toes are pretty close together. Okay. So even though her toes are absolutely stunning, they all kind of come across as pretty close together. So my question would be how, especially when it comes to this action and temperament thing, how is that I don't want to say codependency because I feel like she's a really young person, so she still needs, I don't want her to get worried about codependency, but at the same time, she definitely has that where if she's not communicating out loud or she's not um in healthy relationships, she would have a tendency to shut herself down because they're all so closely connected um, that I almost feel like she's here to observe right now rather than like she's not necessarily open to new information. She's just kind of feeling out the environment. And that could have been when this picture was taken. It could have been this picture was taken probably very specifically for some sort of toenail advertisement. So, they want the toes to look a certain way, so they place them a certain way. But in this picture, based on the nothing that we know about this person, these are the things that would come to mind. So I would say, where do you feel like everything is really tight right now? Or do you feel like everything is tight? And if the answer is yes to that, how is that serving you? Do you understand how that's serving you? And if not, I welcome you to think on it. Think about those things. Think about how it is serving you. Think about how you might want to change it a little bit so that you can adjust your action and temperament to more of your own action and temperament rather than the action and temperament based on others. And that's just based on how close those toes are. The fourth toe is the go with the flow toe. It's the relationship toe. It's the water toe. It's how we show up in the world around us, both internally within ourselves, our relationship with ourselves, and externally, our relationship with others. This is the go with the flow toe. So when we don't go with the flow, this toe can look a little wonky. It can get hidden underneath the action toe. It can be like basically conjoined twins with the baby toe. It can look really challenging sometimes when we're not in a good place in our relationships. But in this particular case, this gal, one of the things that I'll point out, or one of the questions that I would want to ask, is for her on this external self side, I'm noticing that her padding kind of comes to a point right there. Okay. And I didn't draw it very well. But then when it comes to a point right there, and then it goes like straight up, that's better. I'm exaggerating it, obviously, but that's just to make it really obvious that there's a little bit of a point right there. When there's a point like that, I often wonder, how does she feel like she's stuck in a rut when it comes to her relationships? Is it the same conversation over and over and over? Is she trying to adjust something, but she's feeling kind of stuck? Maybe she's a little bit sharp with her tongue. Maybe she's jumping the gun, basically. She's not really thinking things through. She's just getting very defensive when the conversation happens. So the question at hand would be, how does communication look for you when it feels comfortable? What does that look like? And when we ask those kind of questions, one of the things that our mind automatically does is it thinks of all the conversations that went really well, right? That's why did those conversations go well when some other conversations don't go well? What was happening in that conversation where it felt really free flowing and it felt really accepting and it felt like you could speak your truth without penalty or difficulty. So what was happening in that moment that caused that? Can you go back to that? Can you recreate it? What's the flow that was happening in that moment that served that in the best, highest purpose path? And that's kind of, we would do that with both our internal self. We want to make sure that we're really kind and gentle and loving with ourselves in order to be kind, gentle, and loving in the world around us. So that's what I would say about that toe. And then last but not least, we have the right foot has the prosperity and abundance toe, the earth toes, and the left foot has that faith and trust toe. They're the same thing. Okay. They're the same thing. When you have faith and trust, as Lisa Nichols says, it's it's just an innate feeling of knowing. You know you're going to be the one picked. You know that this is going to happen in life. You absolutely feel 100% confident that this is going to happen, whatever this is. Um, but and maybe this is prosperity and abundance. Prosperity and abundance doesn't necessarily mean money, but it absolutely can mean money. In this gal's case, one of the things that I notice is that her toe is turned a little bit to, you can see that that nail bed is kind of turned that way a little bit. Okay, it's turned away from her big toe, and I'll remove that so that you can see it a little bit better. Her nail is kind of on it, or her baby toe is kind of on its side and it's pointed to the future. So the question is, do you feel like your prosperity and abundance or your faith and trust does it often feel like it's in the future for you? Does it often feel like you're struggling to get it here, right now, or like you're trying really hard to achieve these things? Sometimes that's why those toes show up as that future, uh, in that future tense, because we're thinking about it as a future thing instead of feeling that way or emoting that way, having those emotions right here, right now. So that's what that looks like. And if you have any questions, you definitely reach out to me by email. We learned today about the stories that our toes tell, the chakras that are represented, the yin and the yang, or the internal and external self, the past and the future when our toes point certain ways. And, when the toe itself has certain, like, past, present, future, it, I'll have to get into that another time because there's a lot in that number four, past, present, future. And we learned a little bit about the timeline of life, which I didn't really get into, but at least you know a little bit about it. So if you found this presentation valuable, obviously I love your positive feedback. I would love to see that on LinkedIn. If you're not already connected to me on social media, it's Jamie Allen Bishop, no matter where you go. So I would love to connect with you. Let me know what you're thinking. Let's stop sharing. Go back here. And yeah, So I hope you found this presentation helpful. I hope you learned a little bit about toe reading, some things that you didn't know before, and I look forward to seeing you next week for gift 8. This week is gift 7. Wow, crazy. I can't believe we're already almost 2 months gone in this year. So how's your year going? Are you enjoying it? Is it serving you? Definitely time to look at that, time to look at where you're at and where you're headed, and good luck. Thanks for being here today.